Well, hello, this is Karin Zoe Lee, and you're listening to Lotus Moon Productions. Welcome to the Wrestling Rants Project. Whatever the promotion, we're here to learn and discuss. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 45 minutes of wrestling discussion with your host, Shugo Hanasaki.
Welcome back to the Wrastlin Rant Project. We're fresh off the latest episode of WWE Monday Night Raw as NXT airs tonight as of recording. And we have AEW Dynamite Homecoming airing tomorrow. Whether it's CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Ric Flair, Jon Moxley, Hiroshi Tanahashi, or even the Elite that's in the conversation, there's a lot to cover within the wrestling community. And that's not even half the names that we could cover today. But we are going to continue that great conversation today. So with that being said, let's dive into our guest of the hour. These two guys have been absolutely smashing it over the past couple of years of wrestling podcasts. So please help me welcome Larry Hall and Joe Corrado from Brotherly Love Wrestling. How's it going today, guys?
Hey, how are you?
It's going well here. so which one's Joe and which one's Larry?
That is Joe.
I'm Joe.
Yeah, I'm Larry.
All right. Well, it's nice to meet you guys. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
I'll tell you what, Larry got so tripped up because he wasn't expecting that good of an introduction for us.
That wasn't it. No. Don't put words in my mouth already.
We've never heard an introduction such like that for us.
Yeah, we're not used to being on shows. We're used to putting on shows. I'm typically the one who does the intro. So to sit back and listen to an intro really threw me off.
It does, doesn't it? I've been on a few podcasts myself recently, and it's weird. Like as a guest, you're like, I don't have to do anything. What's this?
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing is after this is over, not having to edit anything is gonna be great.
Yeah, I was just talking to Kat about that from Queen's Takeover last week, and we were having a similar conversation because I was on Queen's Takeover podcast there. I think it was last month or so, and I after the podcast was over, I was like, oh yeah, I could just walk away. That's hilarious. But so as listeners know, if you're new to the podcast, we love learning the origins of how people became a wrestling fan, and we want to continue that great tradition every single time we have a new guest on the podcast. So I guess we'll start with Joe. Could you tell us how you became a wrestling fan, what got you hooked, and any potential favorite wrestlers from the past or present, and how old were you when you got into wrestling?
All right, so my dad introduced me to wrestling when I was really young. I want to say like 3 years old. I can remember probably as far back as 5 going to the Spectrum for WWF at the time. And I faintly remember Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter and Savage and getting to see all them live. But my dad, primarily in our house, we watched WCW, like NWA and then WCW. So I was raised on Monday Night Nitro first and hoping to catch some sort of Raw afterwards or somehow find out what happened. So I was always like, because all my friends watched WWF. I was the only one that really watched WCW. So I would kind of have to catch up from them, because my dad was big into Sting and basically just the whole WCW product. So that's how I got into it. So that being said, my favorite wrestler when I was growing up was Sting. I dressed up as him 3 consecutive years in a row for Halloween.
Awesome. That's awesome, man.
Like I had my mom went all out. She found this artist. She bought tights, and this girl drew the scorpion up my leg, like on the tights. I wish I still had them and fit in them and painted my face different every year. It was amazing. I wish I could go back to that time, honestly. I enjoyed wrestling so much more then, and then I grew up, and then I had to start listening to other opinions and whatnot of wrestling, and now it's kind of tainted.
Yeah, the tainted is an interesting word, and I mean when it comes to opinions of other people, I mean in every fandom there's always a bad batch of people, but I find with wrestling or with WWE in particular, they don't act like any other wrestling promotion out there, and we'll definitely get into that conversation. But I want to save it until after I hear about Joe's introduction to the wrestling scene. But that's great though, man. Being 3, 4, 5 years old into WCW, which is a rarity that I have on the podcast. I was a WWE or WWF guy back when I was a kid, but I did always hear like the whispers of WCW. What's going on? What's this and what's that? And I was totally part of the Monday Night Wars. I've been watching wrestling for it feels like forever. It pretty much is practically my whole life, at least 20, 25 years ish, something like that. So I totally feel you, but that's pretty cool though that you grew up watching WCW, NWA, and your dad got you into it.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I mean, it's funny because we'll still catch some wrestling. I think the last one I actually watched with him was the Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 win.
Oh yeah.
And we still, both of us still jumped out of our seat like we were, like it was 1986 again.
That's incredible. I love that. That's magical energy that you just can't replicate. You know, when you're watching with anybody, especially with your father. But I mean, with anybody, you know, you're both watching it for so long, and wrestling can still give you that organic like excitement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's more nowadays like at a live show. Like there's not much that surprises me when I'm watching it on TV anymore, but it's more like being there live and hoping to catch something crazy or maybe a big surprise. Or Larry and myself and a couple other people went to our first Mania when it came to MetLife, and getting to see John Cena come out as the Doctor of Thugonomics, like that, I went crazy for that. Getting to see Kofi win live, like I went absolutely nuts, like we all did. Like it was like, it's different now that I'm older. Like I almost need like that energy from other people to actually get myself up. Because when we're watching it, like a pay-per-view or nothing, it takes a lot to get to that level of excitement anymore. Yeah,
I can see that. I can definitely see that. One thing with WrestleMania is I have not attended a WrestleMania yet, but it's one day I'll get there. But I did see John Cena live, and I saw Randy Orton live, like, you know, like a house show here in Canada. And it was back in, it was 2009, and John Cena came out. He was the champion at the time. He had I think it was still the spinner belt, and a little kid jumped the barricade and ran right to him when he came out to do his entrance, and he was the sweetest guy. Like he was so nice about it. This little girl, she had to be like 6 or 7 or 8, and she jumped like immediately into his arms, and like John Cena was totally cool about it. He picked her up, brought her back over, did a little thing and all that stuff. It was really, really cute. Obviously, you don't do that. Don't teach your kids to do that. But he handled it like a pro, which is really cool.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less from John Cena.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it was John Cena versus Randy Orton at the time. That was when they were having a feud. But yeah. So what about you, Larry? What about your introduction to the wrestling fandom?
Probably around the same age. At least around maybe 5 or 6. I remember probably the first match I ever watched, the first one dedicated to memory, Razor Ramon 1-2-3 Kid on Monday Night Raw, where he does the sunset flip with pin and surprises the hell out of everybody and wins the money over Razor. That's like burned into my memory is like the first match I can actually remember. But and then it was seeing Shawn Michaels, and that's by far as a kid number one.
Yeah, for me too, man. For me too.
It's and obviously I don't need to even tell you that the reasons. It's just he was the guy at the point. I didn't know much of WCW until the Monday Night Wars happened. I would switch back and forth, but then I tried not to because there was all that talk then of, oh well, they're beating us, so like I would literally stay away from Nitro. Just because I didn't want WCW to win, and I would always watch Monday Night Raw and want them to win so bad. So I mean, yeah, I loved WWF, but then appreciated WCW for some of the things that they were. And at Nitro, there was a lot of really, really good stuff that came out of Nitro. Obviously, the NWO and a lot of the angles, but yeah, by far WWF fan through and through, which is kind of why I'm so frustrated with the company now. But yeah, Shawn Michaels is number one forever for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love hearing that too, and it's funny because people can make fun of me all the time, and then they do. I'm the one rare Canadian that loved Sean over Brett.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, we didn't put
Yeah,
two
like,
together. That's like almost sacrilegious over there.
Right? Like I know, like all the Canadians, if they ever tune into my podcast, come at me with like pitchforks. But I mean, I love Bret. Don't get me wrong. Bret Hart, the best there is, the best there was, the best will be one of the best in the business ever. You know, Bret Hart is that talented. He had chemistry with everybody. It's like watching oh man, it's like who name a wrestler right now that just can't have a bad match with anybody.
Daniel Bryan.
There you go. Yeah, Daniel Bryan. There you go. And Bret Hart was pretty much the same thing. Obviously, a little bit different styles, but Bret Hart could never have a bad match. And I mean, he even high-fived me when I was 7 years old. So I mean, that was like, and I still choose John. I had the big heart, the styrofoam heart that you put your hand in and you wave the heart around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm one of those rare cases with Shawn Michaels, and that's when I was a kid, right? I didn't know the backstage politics. None of us did, right?
No, yeah.
It was my mom that got me into wrestling. She was big into it when she was young, and she got me into it. She kind of taught me how to read the land, so to say. So like how to write wrestling. So it's like, I know this is going to happen in 2 weeks, and this person's going to come out next month, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. Like, she was the ultimate prediction person back when I was young, and I was like, how do you know this? Like, what is going on? So I learned all of it from her, but she's no longer into it. But yeah, so I mean, wrestling, but I want to talk about that organic reaction, and how people aren't getting that the feeling anymore, like that excitement through WWE. And I know we're definitely going to be diving into some of the AEW discussion and all the rumors and excitement that's going on over there. But for me as a fan, when it comes to WWE, I've told this to people multiple times, is that I will watch WWE until probably the day I die, or if it gets canceled, whichever comes first. It's just, I've watched WWE for so long that I'm here. Whether it sucks or whether it's bad, or if it's too bad, I won't watch the episode, but I'll catch up on the highlights. Like, I'll always be with knowing what's going on in WWE. But the problem I'm having, or the problem I had, was maybe about 5 years ago I started to notice it. And don't get me wrong, there's been some great feuds over the past 5 years. But I think over 5 years ago or so, I started to notice my passion for wrestling starting to wither. Maybe it was 7 years ago now, because, you know, the whole pandemic year kind of took a year off all of our lives. But I started to notice that I wasn't getting excited anymore. I wasn't getting that jump out of your seat reaction like Joe was telling me with his father. And I started noticing I was just lying there, and I was like, yeah, okay, I've seen this. Oh, yeah, I've seen this. Oh, yeah, this person's going to come out. Oh, yeah. And then the feuds and the stories, they just weren't, I mean, they weren't making me jump. They weren't making me excited anymore. And I started, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I started looking at other promotions. I stepped into New Japan territory. I watched Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. I watched Kenny Omega. Oh, who did he face? I watched Okada. Yeah, Okada. I think he fought Jay White. I started watching the G1 in 2019. Like, I really started getting into New Japan, and I can't wait for the G1 in September to October. But one thing that I kept asking myself, because I try to have an open mind when it comes to wrestling promotions, is, you know, am I the problem? Like, am I that fan that is just bored now of the product, right? But the thing is, I thought it was me. I really did. I was like, maybe I'm getting too old for wrestling. Maybe that's what caused WWE isn't having me as interested. Like, don't get me wrong, when the Shield, you know, started and everything, it was great. We've had, you know, Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte kicking the windshields into place. And then of course, don't forget Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte at WrestleMania, and then Bianca Belair even this year with Sasha Banks. That was an incredible match. Like, I will always give WWE credit where it's due. But the organic feeling of just being excited now, I thought I just wasn't much of a fan of wrestling anymore. But I was wrong. It wasn't me. It was actually WWE. And I don't know about you guys, but when I watch AEW Dynamite now, or even when I watch New Japan, or Impact, like, Impact gets me excited. Sometimes, like when Jay White showed up on Impact, I was like, what the absolute fuck? like I figured he would go to AEW at least first for some sort of invasion, but no, we went to Impact, but to get Chris Bay, which is really cool. But that's different. We'll definitely get there. But what I'm trying to say is, I started watching New Japan and the G1s and all these other matches from different promotions, and that organic energy came back. That passion for the business came back. And I hate saying this, but the product that WWE has created over the past 10 years killed my love for the business, because I thought, when you go out to somebody and you mention wrestling, 9 out of 10 people usually assume you're talking about WWE, right?
Yeah.
And now within 20 years, there hasn't been a second comer, like a second juggernaut of a company, which is AEW slowly building. And AEW came in from nowhere and is now like in second place. It's up there in the top 5, maybe even top 3. New Japan could be more, but I think like WWE hasn't had this much competition. Like, I love NXT. NXT is great. There's lots of good things that go down in NXT as well. And I've said that, NXT, WWE, they have one of the best women's division on the planet. You could argue that with Stardom, but I mean, anyway. But what I wanted to ask you guys was that organic feel. Do you like that passion, that energy, that jump out of your seat? And I totally jumped out of my seat when the Hardys came back at WrestleMania a few years ago. I lost my shit. But that feeling, that's the last time I got that organic feeling, was when the Hardys came back at WrestleMania. But I get it all the time with New Japan and AEW. Like, when I'm watching Wednesday nights, I'm excited. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know the promos are good, the wrestling is good, and when they have a surprise, oh, do they have a surprise?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. That was a lot to take in. So I'll kind of
apologies about that.
No, you're good. Now I just gotta bits and pieces. I'll go at this. I mean, I agree with you about WWE and losing passion. I mean, it's like a flash in the pan. Like, sometimes they'll really get me and they'll really sell me. And it's usually right around a pay-per-view, a larger pay-per-view, or a pay-per-view. Like, I will never miss a Royal Rumble, ever.
Yeah.
I will never miss a Royal Rumble. I always get excited because we get the surprises and we get the things that you don't get to see all the time. I mean, WWE television is the same thing almost weekly. Like, it's almost the same exact show every single week on both shows. I mean, it's been a problem for a while. I mean, like you said, you've seen it all before. Now with AEW, and I mean, we're kind of in the same boat with New Japan. I started watching New Japan later, like in my adulthood, like I was like 30.
Yeah.
Which is 5 years ago. And AEW is this new company, so the things that they're going to do are going to be surprises. Like, a lot of the people you'll either not know because they came from the independents or they came from a small company somewhere, or it'll be someone who used to work for your used-to-be favorite company, which is WWE, and you're going to get to see them try and reinvent themselves here. Like that, or, I mean, you can get into the CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, even Adam Cole's name has been thrown out there because his contract's expiring allegedly at SummerSlam. I mean, there's a crazy amount of rumors, so there's a crazy amount of potential for AEW, and it's like new potential. It's this generation's potential instead of yesteryear's generation, which is, it seems to be what WWE will always do. Their demographic seems to be 5 to 14 and 55 to 70. Like, they skip a large portion of that demographic, and that's where, well, NXT has filled that, but since AEW's come around, they put a stop to that. Like, NXT was the alternative. NXT was that cool,
especially for the hardcore fans.
Yeah, for the fans that were in that age group that I'm talking about. And now AEW comes around and they're doing something else. Mm-hmm. They're giving you the big names that are accustomed to wrestling, but they're also giving you a lot of new names that you get to look at. So, I mean, I think that's where the excitement comes in, is because they're still so new. And you're not getting that. They have so much talent that they still haven't used yet, so that you're getting new things. And they're fresh mashups because they're from different companies. Like, you're getting that New Japan Ring of Honor group that is now AEW, and you're getting them against some of the top talent that was WWE
Or the Indies.
So, I mean, that's where your excitement is, and you get to watch it on TV every week, which is, if they ran independent shows on live TV every week, I mean, there might not be either a WWE or an AEW. It's just, I find excitement when, like, I know where to find excitement. Like, live shows are great. Like, going to small indie shows, they're great. Like, I get a lot of excitement out of that. Like, because you're so close, and you're like there. You're like 5 feet from them.
Yeah. There's actually a wrestling promotion here too, a wrestling promotion I've been meaning to check out within the city. They just established their championship after quite a while of having just no championships whatsoever. But it looks promising, and I plan to check it out at some point. But I mean, it's just that, and people could totally use the argument with me too, and I'm totally open for the discussion that, you know, AEW could just be the honeymoon phase, right? That's why you're so excited. But one thing I got into New Japan before I got into AEW, and every time I've been watching the big indie companies, I'm being rewarded. Like with WWE, you're lucky if you get rewarded long term. Like on NXT, you're definitely rewarded for long term. Like take Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, for example. One of the best feuds that NXT has ever had, in my opinion. And NXT was the alternative. My partner even tells me too that if AEW never came around, NXT would be his thing. And he likes NXT, but he doesn't keep up with it weekly. He just watches the takeovers with me and all the pay-per-views. But the WWE product itself, I can't invest in it anymore. And one of the major of multiple problems is I can't trust the process anymore. I've lost my complete trust in the company. I can't invest in anything. If something is cool now in WWE, I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I'll see where it goes.
Hang on one second, not to interrupt you. Did you just say trust the process to a Philadelphia podcast? Did you do that? Did you plant that in there purposely?
No, I didn't plant it in there. No.
Do you want us to walk out of here?
No, man, no. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. No, but WWE though they've absolutely killed my trust when it comes. It's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, right? You keep telling something over and over and over and over again, and people keep coming to check it out, but then nothing. There's no payoff. There's no major payoff.
Well, I'm glad you said that about WWE though, because and this is the reason why both of us, me and Joe, have kind of checked out of Monday Night Raw. And it's that thing of That Boy Who Cried Wolf. You're right. But I've often equated it to, and I know a lot of people up there might not get somewhat of this reference, but here in Philadelphia for the longest time, up till 2017, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, it was always fans bitching and complaining about nothing changing, not getting the players, not winning enough, staying mediocre. And the one thing I always thought was, stop going, stop buying tickets, stop watching, they will change. And I think that's the biggest thing that WWE is the same way, is you're expecting them to change, but you're still 15,000 strong on a Monday night. The biggest thing is taking it away, hitting them where it hurts, hitting them in the wallet. And yes, it's easy to say and hard to do. A lot of people won't do it. Look, a couple of years ago, they had that Great Balls of Fire shit show of a pay-per-view. But at the end, in the main event, they had people turning around and walking out.
No, that was a different one.
It wasn't great. That wasn't Great
No,
Balls?
that was Joe versus Reigns.
It was Joe versus Reigns. I just thought that was
Great Balls of Fire was Joe versus Lesnar, where everyone wanted Joe and should have gone over and beat Lesnar because he was red hot during that Great Balls of Fire, no pun intended.
Yeah.
To be fair though, how many times have fans walked out of WWE?
Yes, exactly, and that's my point.
They never usually catch them on the. They're like usually good at like focusing in. Like you're not usually like this was like a whole like they panned to everyone leaving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They usually don't do that.
Yes.
And that's stupid on their part.
Yeah.
But it has to happen. People have to stop. They have to. I know it won't. But that's the major thing, is that people really need to show them, and I don't think it'll ever happen. And that's why I'm actually hoping for all these rumors to be true. Let Adam Cole, let Bryan Danielson, let CM Punk, let Brock Lesnar, let them all go there. Let Vince sweat. Put Vince into a corner. Make him do something stupid. Because we saw what happened last time he had to do something stupid, and everybody benefited from it. Maybe not WCW, but they got better. The company got better, and I think that's exactly what needs to happen with WWE. They got to feel the pressure. They got to do something instead of this same old shit, because they know everyone's going to keep watching. Everyone has Peacock. Well, here in the U.S., everyone else does the network. But I mean,
Lucky.
they just have to know that we're not going to take it anymore, and you need to do something different.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. And I'm just onto that point too with NXT and with the whole boy who cried wolf kind of thing is, like, I like NXT and I'll continue to watch NXT, but I can't invest in NXT anymore. And the only reason is because once they go to Raw and SmackDown, it's like majority 75% of the time that character will no longer be the character that I fell in love with in NXT, and I can't take it anymore. Honest to God, I can't go, oh, I love this guy. Oh, they're not going to screw up Ricochet. Screws up Ricochet. Oh, they're not going to screw up Aleister Black. Screws up Aleister Black. Like, they're like, you know, like, they're not going to screw up Sami Zayn. Screws up Sami Zayn. Like, these, like, former NXT champions, former people who the audience couldn't stop cheering for, who sang. Like, Shinsuke went through kind of a rough patch. I think he started to find his footing again. I think they're finally starting to see something in him, because Shinsuke Nakamura is absolutely amazing.
Shinsuke should have had the title at least 2 times by now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he should have, and he should have beat AJ Styles back when he won the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
But I mean, that's the thing. I invested, right? I was like, oh my God, Asuka and Shinsuke both winning the Royal Rumbles and both lost. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, and so I really can't. The trust is gone, unfortunately. And I know that sounds melodramatic, but when someone kills your trust, it takes forever to get it back. I mean, like I said, I'll still watch the product here and there or watch the highlights or whatever. But with AEW and New Japan, I am getting rewarded. I am getting rewarded for watching Impact. I'm getting rewarded for watching NWA. You know, Mickey James comes over from NWA, invites Deonna Purrazzo, which is hurt. People really should know who that woman is if you're not familiar with Impact, because she's an amazing wrestler. And now she's facing Mickey James. So I mean, it's just all these names and all these companies working together. Like, AEW is working with NWA, Impact, and New Japan. And the fact that last week, like, I lost my goddamn mind when I saw Hiroshi Tanahashi on my TV last week. I don't even care. I don't even care if it was just a video. I was like, oh my God, this is live.
Yeah, that Forbidden Door is something, ain't it?
Yeah, well, I was like, it's if Hiroshi's there, it's anybody's guess who's gonna come now. Like, a while back on earlier episodes of the podcast, I predicted that Kenny Omega would eventually lose to Kota Ibushi when he was the IWGP champion, but I don't know what happened there. I mean, it sucks that Will Ospreay got that injury, and but Shingo Takagi definitely deserves the title. But I could have sworn they were finally pulling the trigger on Kota Ibushi and letting him have a long run. I didn't understand it. I was like, what? I know, because Kota Ibushi, the Golden Lovers, and like I said, that's a whole thing that I missed out on because I was watching WWE. But then I learned about it and I went back and, you know, caught myself up on the whole Golden Lovers angle, and then the Elite and the Bullet Club and all that stuff. And like, again, Guerrillas of Destiny, one of the best tag teams ever, you know, I've ever seen on the planet. They're up there, you know.
I think that's your next Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Haku came out in AEW, and they didn't treat him lightly either. He beat up Lance Archer.
Well,
that was great.
He was Mang. I mean,
he's legitimate badass.
He's a legitimate. Yes. He's like one of the toughest guys that WWF ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Haku, like he just came out. Lance Archer tried to get into his face, and he was like, pow, 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 wah. I was like, whoa. He just took out like a. I love what they do with legends too. That they make them look badass. Like, you know, a lot of the legends that come into AEW, like the older generation, like Sting, for example, or Terry Blanchard, even DDP came on. Like they treat them with the utmost respect, and they get the rub onto the right wrestlers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not there to go over. They're there to help build.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're not being jobbed out. They're not being treated like crap. They're not being like sworn at or knocked down a peg. You know, they're
not there solely to win a title.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it was like even when Sting comes out, it's funny too, even with matches, because Sting may not be wrestling very much, and he knows what he can do and he knows what he can't do. And we thought he was retired 5 years ago, so the fact that he was able to even do some sort of match with Darby Allin is incredible. But I like how he comes out with a bat, and like that one time when the Dark Order was out there, and all 5 of them ran away from Sting, like this 62-year-old man with a bat, and the 5 of you who could easily take a guy with a bat run for cover because you're terrified of the aura that Sting still has after all these years. And that must mean a lot to you too, to being a fan of Sting.
When Sting came out, I got the goosebumps.
Yeah.
I will I mean, it doesn't matter where he goes, I will always love Sting.
Yeah, he's incredible, and it's amazing that it took forever for him to find his way into WWE. Like that whole fantasy Undertaker versus Sting match. Well, we're never gonna get it, but I mean,
well, that was always Sting. Sting never wanted to work for Vince.
Yeah. It's crazy, you know. Now, I want to say one thing too, because I mean, time is flying by. We got about 20 minutes left or so, which is fine. But one thing I want to go on the record for, and people hear me chewing on WWE all the time, and like I say, I give credit where it's due. There's plenty of things that we could pick out of the Raw catalog, so to speak, or the WWE catalog that I really like. Like I know this is a long time ago, but Jeff Hardy versus The Undertaker, ladder match on Raw, you know, that's one of my favorite matches of all time. Jeff Hardy was also one of my favorites, or still is one of my favorites. But and the whole, but okay, and before I get to my point too, Jeff Hardy pinning Karrion Kross, not good at all. And I love Jeff Hardy. This is coming from a guy who's biased towards Jeff Hardy and saw the NXT Championship being treated like shit, and seeing Karrion Kross being treated like shit. I was like, what is going on? And then Keith Lee lost last week, but then he beat him this week, and then I don't know what they're doing with Karrion Kross right now. But that's
50-50 booking at its finest.
They should have just left him off. Like, don't put him on Raw. Like, just don't do it. But my point is with Vince McMahon, I was talking about this the other day, and there will never be another Vince McMahon. And he has brought so many crazy, hilarious, engaging, like psychotic moments into the WWE universe. Like Stone Cold versus Vince, which was one of my favorite things as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then the Vince character himself is just completely mad. They're like, we're gonna have people who will try to, you know, be like Vince. They'll try to act like Vince. Some will probably even try to be Vince McMahon, but they will never, ever, ever be anybody as crazy and as dedicated, I think, as a character as Vince McMahon, because he has given us some hilarious, awesome moments. Not even some, a lot. But lately, over the past 5 years, you know, ratings have shown it. The numbers have shown it. Raw, WWE has gone down the tube, and what I can't understand is it's the same writers on both show, and SmackDown's actually a breeze to watch. Like, it really is. Like, yeah, sure, there's certain things I don't agree on, but SmackDown's easy. It's not just because it's 2 hours. It's easy to watch, and what they've done with Roman Reigns and the Tribal Chief, brilliant. It's golden. But I don't know where Vince's head's at anymore. I don't know. I mean, I think it's the writing. There's too many writers. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. I mean, they have writers that write sitcoms. You know, you can't have a writer who writes sitcom who doesn't even know what wrestling is. Like that woman who just got released from WWE not too long ago. She didn't know someone's name. Mm-hmm. Who was it? Yeah, and it's like, you're not representing your company very well if your own employees don't know what's going on. You know?
Yeah, that's a bad look for WWE. That especially. But the one thing, like you said, I always look at big picture. As shitty as Raw may be, or as hard as it may be to watch, and as the NXT call-ups get ruined here and there, and the one thing we got to look at is wrestling today, as we know it, would not be around if it wasn't for what Vince McMahon did.
Yeah.
And turned wrestling into what it is today. Now, of course, he has his faults. We see it weekly. We see it weekly every Monday night at least. But I think, like you said, too many cooks in the kitchen with the writers. I mean, when you had Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard, and Vince McMahon sitting around his pool writing the Attitude Era, some of the best stuff we've ever seen, And yet you have, I don't know,
I'm sure
however many.
They were probably drunk.
Well, yeah.
They had
drunk, high, whatever it took, it worked.
Yeah. I mean, maybe go back to doing that then.
Yeah, exactly. But these 30, 15, however many writers they have, in whatever it is, it's too much. And they need to simplify.
Well, here's the thing. Here, we just kind of said it. And why SmackDown's a breeze to watch. Just rally off the roster of SmackDown. It's your top talent.
Yeah.
It's Roman Reigns,
it's
Edge, it's Seth Rollins, it's Kevin Owens, it's Sami Zayn, it's Big E, it's Sasha, Bianca. I mean, just split some of that up and put it on Raw, and you want to watch it because they are bigger than the writers. I mean, if you have a Finn Balor, God, I mean, just the list goes on and on. What does Raw have? Raw really has maybe 3 people that are kind of like, okay, I kind of want to see what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think Charlotte's one of them.
Charlotte is one of them. She'll always be one of them.
Charlotte. I will go on the. Like I always tell this to everybody too. While Charlotte's character is questionable at times, like where she's going and the heel dynamic, and how they just reduced her championships, and they're not. I don't know what's going on there. What I will say about Charlotte is, no matter who she wrestles with, kind of like back to the Daniel Bryan and Bret Hart thing, she has fantastic chemistry with every woman she ever wrestles with.
She can sell a match. She's very good at making you feel a certain way about however she wants you to feel.
Yeah.
She's very good at doing that. And that's part of the investment in the match.
Yeah, she drives me crazy most of the time as a character, but her wrestling pays off. So it's like, all right, I'll deal with you yapping on for 5 minutes, and then I'll watch you kill a 20-minute match. And I mean kill as in like killing it. You know, like yeah, so I mean she's amazing. She's absolutely incredibly talented. And she really does, like, every Charlotte match I've seen has not been bad. So I mean, I can't sit here and think of a bad Charlotte match. I can think of matches where Charlotte has won a match that I don't think she should have, like Asuka versus Charlotte, for example, back at WrestleMania. But yeah, it was the whole match though was great, like except for the finish. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, with about 15 minutes left or so, now. Obviously, you guys watch as much wrestling as you can cram in, as we briefly spoke about.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want to happen with the rumors? I mean, it's pretty much a done deal, I think, at this point with CM Punk, with the amount of hints that they have dropped, and even on AEW Elevation, I watched it on YouTube last night, and I watched it after Raw, and even on Elevation, they were doing a preview or whatever for The Last Dance for Rampage for the 20th, and in the background this was a pre-recorded CM Punk. It wasn't the audience, you could tell. So if at this point, if something follows through and they don't deliver with CM Punk, I don't know what's going to happen, because they have gotten everybody's hopes up so high. I think this, I mean, and I've said this a lot in the past, but I think this is the closest we've ever come as fans to having CM Punk back.
Wouldn't that be the smartest thing ever, though, to get the most nuclear heat for someone that you want to build for AEW? And wouldn't that be great if MJF came out to Cult of Personality?
I've heard that. I've heard that rumor, and you know what?
And just in Chicago, just get they might actually burn the place down at that point, and it would set apart AEW, I think, light years ahead to do something like that, because one, I won't believe that Punk is there until he is actually in front of my face on my television.
Agreed.
I don't believe it. Like, there's a part of me that's like, it could happen, but again, it's CM Punk. It might not happen. I can see Bryan Danielson showing up. I think just a lighter workload, and he seems like the type that, all right, I've done everything in WWE, and
wanting to work in New Japan, of course, as well.
Yeah, that, and he doesn't even have to go to Japan now to work with New Japan. Like, he doesn't have to leave the kids and the wife, although he probably wouldn't mind getting away from the wife and the kids. But I mean, I think this is one of those times. And I was thinking this the other day, that you can feel the tides shifting. Like, you can feel the tide shifting, and everyone's very aware of it. Like, you can feel something about to happen that could change the landscape of professional wrestling. I think everyone is, like, eerily aware of that. But, I mean, I think some people are trying to hold on and, like, no, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. And there's, like, other people that are like, no, just let it happen, man. Just let it happen. It's good. It's good. I think it's, like, it's really weird time. It's weird. It's exciting. It's, like, it's almost like I don't even understand what's going on. There's so much to process. Like, now I'm just like, I'll just sit back and let it happen. Like, let's just sit back and let this happen. Let's see where the hell it goes. Let's just enjoy the ride.
So I want to do two different things. First of all, I agree what you said about feeling that something's going to happen. And so much so, and I agree with that because Vince McMahon had a conference call and actually addressed AEW, which I didn't think would ever happen. And of course, he addressed it as not being competition, and I'm sure more talent will go there, blah, blah, blah. But him just acknowledging that they exist is a big deal for Vince McMahon to say, regardless if he's just pushing them aside. Second, to add to that booking of MJF coming out to CM Punk, I'm going to add a Shawn Michaels thing that he did, but spin it for AEW. So if you remember the Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels build to SummerSlam.
Yeah. I knew you were going there.
He's in he's in his suit and he keeps calling out Bret Hart in Montreal and keeps playing his music and messing with the people in Montreal. That's what you do with MJF. You have him come out to Cult of Personality, and then you have Cult of Personality hit and no one come out. But then you bring out CM Punk to come out. And that place goes absolutely nuts.
Because he's the face of Chicago.
Exactly. So
he's
you still
spin
no
it
a little bit.
He could actually murder someone in the ring, like cold-blooded murder, and that crowd's still cheering.
Yes.
I don't even think they're gasping. I don't even think it's like, I think it's more like they're just cheering no matter what.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But
So
I think
I like that. I like when we fantasy book shit because it'll never happen, but it should, and it'll be cool.
Yes, absolutely.
I tell you one thing. If MJF was going to do that and he trolled the audience, and let's say, CM Punk didn't show up at Rampage, but he showed up at All Out or something, or a feature Chicago show, MJF, I think, is the only person on that roster that could get away with it, with how much heat that he would get. But that's amazing, though, that you have a wrestler who's that young and that talented. MJF is beyond talented for his age, like just beyond, and he gets it so bloody well. Like, and I've gone on record for this. Like, MJF is the asshole that AEW needed.
Yes, absolutely.
But with the whole being involved with Chris Jericho now up until All Out, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen at all. But I like the idea. I actually like the idea because the internet would just blow up and people would riot. Like, people would be like, what the hell? Like, they would, or he came out at the beginning of the show, played his music, came out, and then at the end of the show, CM Punk came in with a save. I don't know.
Either way, it's all deadly. Either way.
The most interesting, I don't want to bypass this because apparently there was multiple sources that put out that Adam Page will no longer be going for the AEW championship against Kenny Omega, which seemed to be a lock.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have speculation of, oh my God, who's going to come out? Who's going to be the one to challenge Kenny Omega? And that's, I think, where the rumor mill, like, that was right around the same time where Adam Cole started to come into the equation, because I think the Bucks put something like the ghost emoji as their profile. Yeah. And as we all know, that Adam Cole got killed off in being the Elite. I mean, there was tweets about soon enough, like, we'll see you soon or whatever. I mean, it makes sense. His girlfriend or fiance or whatever Britt Baker is to him, she works there. I mean, a lot of his friends work there. The Bullet Club. I mean, it would make sense. And if I saw it once and I was like, God, that could actually happen, is that they come out and say, yeah, Adam signed the contract, but we didn't say which Adam. And Adam Cole comes out to face.
Yeah.
Now that's an introduction.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, Adam Cole was going to smash. I was just actually finishing watching a video from Simon Miller on Adam Cole. Simon Miller 3116. Anybody who goes who wants to check him out, he's an amazing dude. Covers wrestling industry very, very well, and he's been on my podcast quite a few times. But Adam Cole potentially going to AEW after NXT or after NXT Takeover, the SummerSlam weekend. it'll be interesting. And I mean, it could be Adam Cole versus Kenny Omega. It could be Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. I think Adam Page is going to get it at Full Gear. I think he's going to beat Kenny Omega there. Because Full Gear is Adam Page's shtick, you know what I mean? So I think that's where he'll beat Kenny Omega. I think Kenny's going to hold on to it until at least then. But yeah, it would be really, really interesting. With the most important thing within the wrestling universe right now, and I'll leave it here, is there's buzz. And there's a lot of it. There's a huge amount of buzz. Like, I've been on 3 different podcasts who have we've talked about roughly the same thing, but in different things. We've said different things on it. Like me, you and Joe, and I've talked to Kat from Queen's Takeover podcast. I've talked to my friends about this. I've sent them this. I've sent them that. Like, the whole world's buzzing right now for wrestling. So the final question, where I'll leave the interview at, with both of you, and I'll start with Larry. If CM Punk, I mean, well, it's pretty much a done deal at this point, but where would you want him? Like, okay, so let's just say AEW has CM Punk. Okay, we're now in a universe where CM Punk has come out. He's now in AEW. Everybody's going mad. Who would you actually want him to, like? I don't want to throw him into the championship. I want him to have really cool feuds with various people, but who would you want him to feud with, Larry?
Okay, so I have a 1 and 1A, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not title. It's storytelling. It makes sense. My 1A is him and Colt Cabana.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
Everything built in. You have the podcast. You have the lawsuit. You could run that the entire way. So it will definitely work. My other one is him against Kenta. You have the go to sleep. Kenta used it in NXT. Punk wasn't there. There was that feud they had on social media. And they're both good starters. They both can be completely different matches when you're talking about Punk Cabana or Punk Kenta. So, you got a New Japan guy with that Forbidden Door open. So I think as original, now granted, it might not have the fanfare of maybe a Bryan Danielson and Punk or any of the bigger names that are with, of course, Cody or Malachi Black or whatever. But as far as storytelling, solid stories built in, and not only that, something that I would love to see. So yeah, those are my 2. Joe?
I'm not thinking anywhere near there. I'm trying to think of wacky or bizarre or just something that I would never expect to see. So I'm gonna do a 1 and 1A because I'm not gonna let you have 2 picks and me not get 2 picks because that's not fair. And I'll even do an honorable mention. So I'm thinking 1A just because of sheer entertainment. Honestly, it's such a weird mashup, but it would be fun and good at the same time. It would be CM Punk and Orange Cassidy.
I knew you were going to say it. Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
I love Orange Cassidy's in my top 3 wrestlers right now of any promotion of all of wrestling. He is like, he could have the Rocket strapped to him. I mean, the Rocket wouldn't move that much, but I mean, he is today's, like, if you were to relate to anybody, nobody wants to do anything. I mean, he's the most relatable wrestler there is.
Yeah.
And he's proven that he can mash up against pretty much anybody. I mean, the interaction between him and Sting will go down in history as one of my favorite wrestling moments. Just for obnoxiousness alone.
Yeah, I absolutely lost it last week when I saw Sting and Orange Cassidy doing that. I lost it. Lost it so hard. I laughed so hard. I was like, oh my god, this is something that I didn't know I needed, and now I never want to let it go.
Yeah, it was like captured in a moment of time. It was like sheer perfection. Nothing mattered right then and there except for that. So yeah, CM Punk and Orange Cassidy just for just sheer enjoyment for myself. And for a number 1, and it was already mentioned, but just for promo work alone to lead up to a big match would be CM Punk and MJF. I mean, just them on the mic would sell it, and it's going to be a fantastic match. I mean, I haven't seen Punk wrestle in quite some time, but MJF is really a solid wrestler, but I'm more into this match for just promo. Give me a long build. Give me a long, drawn-out build, something that WWE doesn't really do anymore. These two guys can pull it off perfectly. It would feel like the leg end of the Attitude Era, or it would feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I want to go on record, too, and state that while the Attitude Era had some amazing gems, trust me, like, you know, guys and girls who have not seen the Attitude Era, it had some crazy, awesome stuff, but the women's division now, compared to the women's division of 20 years ago, I'm so happy with where we are now. Because the women are smashing it. I mean, Trish and Lita, my two girls back then, my two women back then, they were my favorite wrestlers back then. I could never fully pick a favorite, but I think Trish might be number one.
That's only because she's Canadian.
No, it's not, actually. It's not. You'd think knowing my style of wrestler, you'd think I'd go for Lita because of the Hardys and Team Extreme. But no, it was Trish was just, there was something about her. There was just something. I loved her. I have everything, I have all her DVDs and all that stuff. I think she's just, I don't know. I think she's incredible. I really do. I think she's absolutely talented. When she came back, I knew she was going to lose to Charlotte Flair. I knew it, and that was the best way to use her. You know, get that rub on Charlotte. Yeah. But I really wish we had have gotten the Alexa Bliss versus Trish Stratus, because Alexa Bliss is my favorite modern day female wrestler in WWE. And
I don't know. I think Sasha Trish would have been.
Yeah. Well, you could list it all, right? You could do the four horsewomen. You know, you could say.
You could say for the Royal Rumble interaction alone, I think that would have been enough to spark it for me.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean, you could throw anybody in there: Asuka, Bayley, Sasha, Becky, Charlotte. You know, well, she already had Charlotte. Alexa. You could throw Natalya and Trish. I think they would put on a good match too. Natalia's been around for a while now, so I mean, like you could name any woman I think on the roster, and Trish would have a great match with. I mean, you could even Mickey James is gone now, but you could even stir up their feud again. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, with that, we'll wrap things up. Well, we had quite a discussion. It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Now, can you tell everybody briefly about your podcast and where people can find you?
Yes. So, like you said in the beginning, we are Brotherly Love Wrestling. We're on Twitter at 215 Wrestling, Facebook and Instagram Brotherly Love Wrestling. We try and do exactly what most wrestling podcasts do, but we try and do it a little bit different. We have fun. We want to be a little different. We want to be out there. We have as much fun as we possibly can, because if we're not having fun doing this, we're going to stop. We like to hope that everyone has fun listening to us, as much fun as we have recording. We talk to a lot of independent wrestling stars, and even some that aren't stars that you may have never heard of before, but we like to talk to anybody and everybody when it comes to pro wrestling. And that's, again, why we're on this show. It doesn't matter to us if they have 30,000 followers or 3 followers. We just want to talk wrestling. We want to have fun, and we hope that people will come along for the ride and enjoy the show and look, interact with us and have fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great shout, man. It's a great shout, and I'm so proud of you guys for coming as far as you've gone. I mean, you don't know me that you don't really know me at all, but I'm proud of all the promotional work that you've done. I'm proud of all the podcasts you've done, all the followers that you've gained. It's great, man. It really is, and it was an honor to have you both on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And as usual, you can find our socials at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions, Twitter under Lotus Moon Prod, Lotus M Productions on Instagram for the independent music side of things, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions. With that, this has been LMP Wrestling, and we are signing off.